My voice is finally back, so we're going through your iCave Answers questions that have built up over the last week or so, rapid fire style, so let's get into it. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.
At Team Kinetics Media. Hashtag iCave Answers. I have an old iPad mini 3rd generation, which stopped getting updates at iOS 12. What's a good use for this device? At the moment, it's a YouTube player for my little girl. Could it serve a greater purpose?
YouTube player for kids is not a bad use of these, although I would say as well, quite a lot of the older devices are even losing support for playing YouTube videos. You can do it through Safari, but sometimes the YouTube app is getting depreciated, things like that. It is quite difficult to find uses for these things. I mean, for me, I stripped out an old Retina iPad, like the 4th generation, and that's what became the screen in here using an LCD display controller. So that's one thing that you can do with them. There are a few other bits and bobs you can do. I know some people use them as digital photo frames, but honestly, once they lose software support, it does become a lot more difficult to find something really useful to do with them. YouTube player, not a bad shout, and yeah, it's a nice Retina display. It's going to work quite nicely for that for a while, but yeah, there's not a huge amount else you can do with it.
At Team Kinetics Media. Hashtag iCave Answers. Any new iPhone iOS top tips for the hordes of people who switch to Apple over the holidays. What's your essential top tips for a new iPhone or iPad?
So the best thing you can do when you get a new iPhone is, for one thing, work out what you actually want to do with it. If you want to just use it as a camera, as your kind of day-to-day phone, a bit of social media, that sort of stuff, absolutely fine, go for it. But what I would say is open up all of the default apps, see what they actually do, because there's a lot of functionality that's built into the phone that I think we kind of skip over a little bit these days because we know about all of the extra apps. The ones that I would download straight away would be my social media stuff, so Instagram, Facebook for my sins. I still use it a little bit. X, I'm on X far too much still, even though I dislike it as a platform now. YouTube Studio, things like that for me. If you're really into your cameras, have a look at the Blackmagic camera app. That's really good. Just play around with what's on there and just explore. The whole point of not getting a handbook with your iPhone when you get it is because it's much more interesting to find out how things work by playing with them. And have a look at the top apps on the App Store. There's normally some stuff in there that you'll want. I would say though, if you're into games, Apple Arcade is a really good value still.
At RoblinCon 2152. Hashtag iCave Answers. What are your feelings on trading in your older devices and on a new machine? I have traditionally favored buying a device and then running it into the ground, but that was before we had an option.
I honestly think trade-ins are the worst option going. So if you do want to do the whole stay at the front edge of devices and try and keep up to date, sell privately. You will get far more money than you will on any trade-in with Apple. Yes, there's a little bit more hassle to it, there's a little bit more risk applied to it, so if you're going to sell a used device on eBay, whatever, make sure that you've wiped it properly, make sure that you've unlocked it. Activation lock is one of those things you need to make sure you've done properly, but you will get a far better return by selling privately than you will by trading in, because all that's going to be is they then get resold privately and they make their money in that gap between. So if you can resell your device directly to someone else that's going to have it, you get all of the profit, which is a win. Honestly, if I was to sell my M2 MacBook Air when the M3 MacBook Airs come out, I would probably be looking at spending maybe $300 extra to do that trade up. So that's a really good option for staying, $300 a year to stay at the forefront of what's out there. That seems like a really good deal to me. I would also say though, if you're going to do this as like a pattern, try and buy the base models because they hold more value. Like the bottom of the market stays where it is. The higher end stuff with more storage and more RAM doesn't tend to get you the return as well.
At RoblinCon 2152. When you mention chiplet packaging potential for M7 SIP, doesn't the speed penalty for dropping down to a substrate between modules hamper the advantages of integrated memory? Sure, outside of the integrated cache, memory is already placed on the package, but it would increase latency several-fold. No.
Now, I am not a chip designer, chip architect, any of that stuff. However, my understanding is that the way Apple will be doing this is kind of building it all into that SIP will keep the vast majority of the speed. If they're moving up to a faster memory, for example, that will be enough to kind of offset any differences there. Obviously they're leaving something on the table by doing it, but if it's going to give much more flexibility, much higher yields, then the prices in general can come down too. And I think that is probably still going to be the right move for Apple to go with.
At Team Kinetics Media, hashtag iCave answers size clearly matters. Why are 14 inches and 16 inches laptops preferable to 15 inches and 17 inches? I love my 14 inches MVP, but the 16 inches feels too big. Previous MVPs have always been 15 inches. Dell have shifted their popular XPS range to be 13 inches, 14 inches, and 16 inches from this year. Why are these sizes preferable?
Cool, so in terms of why we've gone to 14 and 16, this is pretty much just down to the fact that the bezels have got smaller. So the 14 inch fits in the footprint of the old 13 inch, the 16 inch fits in the footprint of the old 15 inch, 17 inch MacBooks haven't been around for quite some time now. And it's a great size if you want a portable workstation. However, 16 inches is a really good size for a laptop. And if you look at what Dell has done, shifting their XPS range, it's interesting, isn't it, that they've chosen exactly the same sizes that Apple has. I wonder where they got the idea. I would also say 17-inch laptops, some people have been asking for them. I would say 17 or 18-inch laptops are unlikely from Apple because the battery that's inside the 16-inch is already as big as it physically can be and still be allowed to go on an aeroplane, so they're not going to go up a size and then you're not able to travel with your laptop. The whole point of a laptop is it is portable and you take it with you.
At Team Kinetics Media, hashtag iCave answers. I've seen other creators suggesting the YouTube algorithm isn't helping smaller creators right now. How are your numbers looking? Do we need to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and post more comments to feed the algorithm?
This is a bugbear for me, I'm not going to lie. I don't think the algorithm is favouring anyone over anyone else. What the algorithm is doing is trying to find the right videos for the audience that is watching. Of course, there is going to be more people that watch things that come from CBS or ABC or the big companies in the States. Yeah, the late night shows, comedy, stuff that's fully produced. There are going to be more people watching that in general than watching someone like me. So the algorithm is going to see that. However, I think that if you ever blame the algorithm for not showing your stuff to other people, that's just you blaming the world, the universe, something other than yourself. My views are down, but that's down to me not making as many videos and not making the videos that you guys obviously want to see at the minute. So more important to me than subscribing, ringing the bell and posting more comments, which I'm more than happy for you to do, is down in the comments, let me know what you want to know about. Let me know what you want to see from me, and then if we make the videos that you want to watch, that will fix everything. Don't blame other people, that's how religions start.
At Team Kinetics Media, hashtag iCave answers. What happened to those wacky-shaped ergonomic keyboards of the 90s? Both Apple and Microsoft had funky ergonomic keyboards. I'd wager we use computers more now than 30 years ago, but keyboards have gone back to being rectangular. What gives?
My thought on this is probably that those ergonomic keyboards weren't any better. That's probably my guess. I think everyone wanted to make something that was different. It looked different, it got headlines, clickbait, all that sort of stuff. I think because people type in different ways as well, not everyone has the same crossover point in the middle of a keyboard. If you're forcing that crossover point, that's going to make it more uncomfortable for some people. I don't think those ergonomic keyboards were actually any better for you. That's probably my thoughts on it.
At Team Kinetics Media, hashtag iCave answers. When will AI stop being a useful tool and become a real threat to humanity? Joking aside, governments have been pretty bad recently at legislating the tech industry. Legislation seems to move slower than technological innovation. How can we expect governments to legislate for something like AI, which is evolving too quickly?
I'm not going to lie, I don't actually see this threat from AI that everyone keeps talking about. The market is going to regulate itself in a lot of ways. We've already seen it with YouTube has said that AI voices and AI written scripts will have to be marked as such. So if you don't want to watch AI content, you don't have to watch AI content. The whole general AI, which everyone's worried about, which is the one that decides that it's going to take over the world, we are nowhere close to that. There's nothing on the horizon that looks like it's going to be like that. Yes, governments are terrible at regulating technology because they don't understand it. Typically, they are people that don't use technology other than using a bit of email and a smartphone. They're not even good at producing content that they would then use to get re-elected. I think the threat of AI is massively overblown, and I think the only people that are talking about it are the ones who want to profit from regulating it somehow, or stop other people from progressing in what they're working on. AI is machine learning. It's taking what we do now and finding out what works well and what doesn't, and then shifting towards the stuff that works better.
At Team Kinetics Media, speaking of Apple innovations, #iCave answers, why do you think the touch bar failed? When launched, I know a lot of people said it would be amazing when developers made full use of it. Did this not happen? Or did consumer just not want it?
So the touch bar was a really cool idea. They executed it badly at the start because they built the escape key into it, and people need an escape key at times to be able to get out of all sorts of stuff, things like full screen apps on a Mac. And the fact that it took multiple extra presses to get to your volume, for example, so that you could slide along it. Had some really good applications as well, like scrubbing a timeline on a video editing app, but I don't think the compelling argument for it and what it added to the experience was enough for the additional cost and the additional overhead for developers to develop stuff that could be used on that, but then also because it wasn't on every laptop, wouldn't be usable across everything. So it had to basically duplicate something that was already on your screen, because otherwise, the people that didn't have the touch bar wouldn't be able to use those features, and that's very strange. So yeah, that was the biggest problem. I think it was half-arsed is the main issue. And that's it for this one today, guys. Don't forget, I am actually recording the first aluminium Apple News with a British accent podcast today, so that will be out hopefully this side of the weekend. Please go over and subscribe to it on your podcast platform of choice, Spotify, Amazon, I think it's going to be on, Apple Podcasts, and I would love to hear your feedback on it. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you, Patreons! Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.